School districts across the country say that America was built on stolen land. Over 100 districts have made land acknowledgement statements, some of which denigrate America. This will be interesting, so let's read through it. More than 100 school districts across the country have made land acknowledgement statements, many of which say that the United States was built on stolen land and committed genocide. Districts in at least 17 different states have land acknowledgement statements. A parenting defending education analysis exclusively obtained by the Daily Wire shows a land acknowledgement, which PDE defines as a formal statement that is intended to recognize indigenous or native peoples as the original inhabitants / stewards of the land as a school district, staff, and students occupy. So we'll read that one more time. A formal statement that is intended to recognize indigenous or native peoples as the original inhabitants / stewards of the land that a school district, staff, and students now occupy are often read at the beginning of meetings or public gatherings. So these are like prayers to these people. These are like a land acknowledgement to a left-wing Looney Tune is basically the same as when you go to church and you have the Psalter, or you go to church and you have your sacraments and your different things and your rituals that you say before you commence your service or before anything like that. So this is their form of that, is this weird demonic land acknowledgement. So moving on through this article, the article actually links the supposed land acknowledgement here. So let's have a little fun here. Let's go ahead and read it. Let's go ahead and look at this land acknowledgement that they have for us. So here's the land acknowledgement here. Looking at this is from the Francis C. Richmond Middle School, RMS land acknowledgement. So let's go ahead and read this together, okay, guys? So bow your heads with me and let's say our daily land acknowledgement. We, the RMS community, would like to acknowledge that our school is built upon the unceded land of the Abenaki, and Pennacook peoples. The land was stolen. We recognize that these people were removed by the government and did not willingly leave. The displacement still affects Indigenous people today. For example, many nations locally and across the United States do not have access to clean water and other vital resources. Despite its stained past, we are grateful to be able to use this land to learn, grow, and draw inspiration from the Indigenous people. We are indebted to them because we have all benefited from this land. Therefore, we are committed to support and preserve Native communities living here today. While we cannot change the past, we can dedicate ourselves to creating a better future for all. Amen. Amen and amen. Moving on with the article. Gosh, what am I doing nowadays? Whew. Sorry, they got me a little emotional there. Minnesota's Robbinsdale area schools say that its district is located on the homelands of the Dakota and Ojibwe people, before adding that we recognize the painful history of genocide and forced assimilation of the indigenous inhabitants of this land. These so-called land acknowledgments are ridiculous virtue signaling designed to teach kids to hate America, Michelle Exner, senior advisor for Parents Defending Education, told the Daily Wire. It's even more insane when you consider that many of these schools are failing to teach basic academic fundamentals, but find the time to push this useless nonsense. So looking at the land acknowledgement and looking at what this Michelle Exner saying, all valid points. Not the land acknowledgement. The land acknowledgement is not a valid point, but when you look at it, it's ironic because they make the point to say, yes, all these great, horrible things happened, right? All the genocide, this, and this. But we're grateful that we have this land, though. You know, this land is actually really nice, and we're actually really grateful to have it. And they're thanking the Indians, who they're claiming didn't move willingly. So it's like they got kicked off, but you're still thanking them for it anyways. So, I mean, they're just hypocrites, flat out. I mean, if they truly believed what they're saying, they would pack up, move out, destroy the school, give it back to the Native Americans, claim that it's not their land, and they would move off. But yet they still don't have the gut to follow through and to get rid of their school, because they realize that they really do enjoy the land they have, and that they were given not by the Native Americans, but by the hardworking colonists who came here and won their right to have say to the land. And they act like this is something new, and this is just I've been reading a book, The War on the West by Douglas Murray, and it goes into a lot of these points, and it's a great book. You should read it. But the point that Douglas Murray makes to a lot of these things is that only the West is held to this absurd standard that no one else is held to. Okay, all land is stolen land at some point or another. There is no group of land that has not been stolen one way or the other. Even before the Americans showed up, they were stealing land from each other. They were killing, raping, and doing everything to each other that they would have been doing that vice versa. Okay, so it's not unique to colonial culture. In fact, in many ways, when we get to the point of colonialism, not saying it was perfect, not denying any horrible things that happened. Of course, there was painful, horrible things that happened, but to deny the rest of human history before that and to make this to be the evil of all evils is just absurd. And like I said, we are the only country, the West included, Europe, most parts of Europe, stuff like that. We are the only parts of the world that are held to this absurd standard that no one else is held to. Yet, like I said, these left wing idiots will not follow through with their worldview and give the land back and move, get off the stolen land because they enjoy it. It's just their virtue signaling, as Michelle Exner says. The Minnesota School District is far from the only one that argues that the United States was built on genocide. Oregon's North Clackamas School District blames the United States for colonization and genocide. And here's their statement, reads as such. Here, we'll read it here. So here's another solemn land acknowledgement. This is from the Oregon School. We recognize the historic policies of colonization, genocide, relocation, and assimilation that affected the indigenous and native families, both past and present, and that will affect those in the future, and honor the resilience and revitalization of our indigenous and native communities. So on, here's another example, Colorado Boulder Valley School District, similar language. We acknowledge the atrocities committed here, including the painful history of genocide, forced assimilation, and efforts to alienate the indigenous inhabitants from their homeland, supported by the policies of the United States government, it reads. So on and so on. These are all from all these woke, ridiculous school districts, which are denigrating American history, flat out just lying in many senses, and just basically taking a 1,000-foot bird eye view and just smearing the country. And see, this is the part about being an intelligent human being, having social IQ that not many people understand is that, when you are a very intelligent person, you have the ability to do this thing, okay? This may come as a shocker to some of you, but you have this ability to look at history or look at multiple events and to understand them within their context and to look at it as a whole picture, okay? So, for example, okay, let's dive into some history here. Let's take, an example of a massacre or something brutal that happened. Let's take, for example, the Bear River Massacre, okay, just to name one off the top of my head. In what is now Preston, Ohio, 350 members of the Northwestern Band of Shoshone Nation, they were killed, obviously acknowledged as a horrible event. And you have that, and you can acknowledge that, and that's fine. That is a part of history. We acknowledge that, we look at that, and we analyze the situation. We look at the people involved, we look at their motives, their faults, their shortcomings, and everything that characterizes that. However, a socially intelligent person also looks at America as a whole and looks at the good things that happened, looks at, the people who came alongside Native Americans, like the Pilgrims, who sought to build relationships, sought to foster, mutual agreement, trade even, tried to benefit, cause benefit both ways. And I'm not saying that's the majority case. However, things are a little more complicated than that, okay? And not all Native American groups are the same. And this is also a part of being socially intelligent. Some Native American groups were ravenous savages who raped, murdered, and killed and were warfaring tribes who were seen as just completely unnegotiable with, and that there really was no option but to have to fight with them. And obviously that is a part of history. That is real. And there are other tribes who were able to make peace with Americans in many ways and able to come to a compromise and to actually have those building and working relationships. And so it's not as black and white as many people want to make it to be. And that's what exactly is happening here in all of these land acknowledgments, is only acknowledging one side of the story, not even giving a full statement. But at the end of the day, we won the land as Americans. We won the right to be on the land. We were a superior nation who came in. Many people died. When they say genocide, they fail to leave out the fact that most people, most Native Americans, did not die at the hands of Europeans directly. They died at the hands of European diseases, which is completely out of the control. That is something that not even the Europeans understood at that point. They didn't know that they carried, transcontinental diseases and all these things that were, in their bloodstream. They had no concept of that. Okay, they didn't even. A lot of them didn't even know what soap and a daily shower could do for you, brushing your teeth, things like that. So that part is just thrown out immediately. The genocide, forced assimilation, all these things, everything that they possibly accuse Americans of, the Native Americans did in one shape or another to their own people. And so, is the United States perfect? No. Is the United States, would I say that the United States was a morally superior entity of people, more civilized at that point in time, and brought actually good benefit to the West, to the Western Hemisphere and to this part of the world? Absolutely, no doubt about it. Okay, you cannot tell me that Native Americans today are worse off than they were when they were living in mud huts. Now that they have cell phones, they can go to they have literally have they used to have an NFL team named after them. They have all types of privileges and things that they have access to. Native Americans have more opportunity to excel in the world than ever before. You just can't make that point in that argument very clearly. Okay, the land was stolen from them, but the land they live on now has way more benefits and all these things to them than ever before. And when you speak to most Native Americans nowadays, now granted there are some that still hold on to their heritage and their traditions, but most of them are addicted to their, that are on their phones. They're not even being productive. They don't care about their culture or anything like that. They've never fought for that in any way, shape, or form. There are some out there that do, but these points are just idiotic. These school districts are just virtue signaling, mumbling idiots who are just trying to appease their left wing, crowds and agendas, and just basically checking another thing off the list. DEI, Native Americans, land acknowledgments. That's all just a part of the grift.